Hey there, friend. I want to talk to you about the quality of watercolor. So, we're going to do a bit of a comparison because I want you to avoid this sort of thing. I don't mind making mistakes in my Bible so that you can see how not to do something. I used some cheap quality watercolor for this, and you can do it. But I often get people emailing me saying, why didn't this work? What went wrong? I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to try and get close here for you. So you can see right inside the binding, I've actually got loads of the watercolor stuck in there. And if I run it across here, you can hear it. That's actually chalky substance coming onto my hand. And I did this a few years ago and it still comes off. It still comes off on my hand all these years later. Now I've got red on my hand. And it's because this watercolor is cheap quality. This is a watercolor cake, and this is different to a pan, which I'll show you, but you can see the very dull nature of this. See how the light shines off of this plastic? And there's no light shining on any of these cakes, and it's because there is so much filler in here in order to make it an affordable quality that you end up with the filler leaving more of a residue because there's more filler on your paper than there is color, and you can see it's a very pale color, right? There's no sense of vibrancy here. So then you can go a step further above this. This is, like craft grade. This isn't even student grade. It's more craft grade. You could go a step further and you can get something that's a bit more student grade. This would be something like this, and this is really lovely. You can see the vibrancy is a little bit better, and you can see there's nothing over here. And when I'll wipe my hand clean here first. You can hear the noise here is different. It's soft here. It's just different. I don't know if you can pick it up on the microphone, but it's different, and it's because there's just nothing extra coming off here, and it's just lovely crisp colors just like you want. And now this is slightly better than student grade, but this is basically what student grade will behave like. It will give you something to look at that's nice, and it's a little bit more vibrant than, say, this is. On camera it seems about the same, but actually this is a little bit juicier. You can kind of see the detail in the watercolor. You can see where it's granulating and when it's not, which gives it a little bit of fun texture. It's pretty to look at. This feels very dull to look at. You can not see any light reflecting back through this because the filler is just capturing the light and holding it. So if you don't want to do that and you want to go even further, you can go to professional grade or artist grade. Now there are a few in between there, between craft and student, and we could sit here and debate all day, but the general idea is that there is very low quality, medium quality, and better quality, and that's what I'm going to try and show you here. So this last example is actually here. So this one, you can see the richness of the color. In fact, I can actually read all of the scripture here. As much as this is very dark and it looks like you can't read any of it, I can read it all. And if I get it up nice and close here, you can see that you can see the texture here. And I did this with a really fun technique. I put all the paint on after I'd page prepped it, and then I crinkled some plastic wrap on it for it to dry and left it for 2 or 3 hours, and then it just peels up and you get this really cool texture. It's very fun. It's even easier to read the text if you use a lighter color, but I want to show you this because as much as I can actually read everything here, I've tinted the page rather than covered the text, and what I have here is actually some very rich, bold, beautiful color, and that is because this is professional watercolor. So it's a very different feel, even to the kind of in between where you get the student grade. Here you can see that it's really pretty. But even peeking around the corner, you can see how much richer this color is, as opposed to this very subtle but beautiful and not moving. Not a lot of filler there, and as a result it's going on kind of nice. So that's how you can see it from actually looking at the pages. But how they actually behave and look inside the palette or on your paper is another story as well. So here we have this really basic quality, this cake, and I'm gonna get my brush and I'm just going to get this as a newer brush, so I just want to make sure it's nice and loose there. Okay, so I'm going to get some water and I'm going to put it right on this one here, and I'm just rubbing it a few times to get some color in there, and it goes on okay. This is fine, but this is what actually causes the stuff to be left over, because it's got stuff inside of it. So as much as this is interesting, it's going to cause me a problem when I'm wanting everything to stay. And I think it's not a problem on a fun, little project, but when you're working on your Bible and you close the page and you think everything's fine, and then you open it up and your whole page is transferred to the other page, it's a bit, disconcerting. So now I'm going to pick up a second layer here, and now see, it looks like there's a richness of color there. And so, the feeling is that, wow, it has actually got plenty of color available to it. So why buy something better? I think that is a valid question, but as you've seen, the transfer is a problem. So I go through a lot of stuff in my page prep course and my Color Made Simple course, all about color theory and all about how things work in those two courses, how the products work. So definitely check those out. I'll put links below, and you can get access to some of that inside of the Heart to Freedom membership. So I'll link it in case you want to get access to some of these things to try and learn a little bit more with me. But let's look at this. So this is the basic, really student grade, right? Then we have what you would call a student grade. So I'm going to reach for Munyo for this. And you can see inside here, this is very, I want to see if you can actually see this. I'm going to go up here, and you can see that I still can't see much light reflection on this. There's just subtle amounts of it. If I just turn it the right way, you can sort of see that light is bouncing back at the camera, but it's just very subtle. And I'll just pull this out of the way, see if that helps. You can see that it feels richer and it's not dull in the same way, but it is actually still student grade. And you can see that it's cracking a little bit. It's got air bubbles in it. It's not super high quality. This is just, fun student grade. This is like a great set, the Munyo ones. It's a great set if you're just trying to find out what you think about watercolor and you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you want a good handful of colors. So let's try this one. Now I'm going to use my chart here to help me decide which color I'm after, and it's actually that one right there. So that's going to be the most comparative. So I'm gonna go in here, hope to get a decent amount on my brush like before, and you can see straight away how much richer this is. That is way better, right? I can't even say that I feel as though I've missed a certain amount of color here. It's all nice and rich, and this isn't even professional. So let's now say, in my case here, I might actually go in and remove some of it. You can swipe it with a drier brush like this because you want it to match, but I had to actually knock it back, if you will. by removing some of the color to do that, because it just comes out so much richer. This is 2 layers. This is 1 layer. This is 1 layer. There's just no comparison, and this is not professional here. So now let's look at more professional options. So while I'm on that, on this one though, I want to tell you about this. This is a tubed watercolor that is Winsor & Newton Cotman. So if it's Winsor & Newton Cotman instead of Winsor & Newton Professional, then you know Cotman is their student grade. And this one, because it's actually inside of here, so much easier to open these with a rag around your hand. There we go. So if it's inside the tube, it actually comes even richer. So you're meant to put just a dab of it onto your palette, and then you can let it dry, sometimes for a week or 2 or whatever, and then you fill your palette like this and it will be ready for you to use whenever. So you don't have to actually go about this in some sort of like, you know, you use it fresh out and then that's it. You actually use this by putting it into a palette of your choice, and then you leave it for however long you want. So here we go. I didn't get very much in here, so this may be slightly less colorful, but we're going to call this student grade as well. Yeah, I cheated. I didn't get as much on the brush. So now I've got a more subtle color here. And so you can see that this has, I don't know if you can tell from here, but this is a really important difference here, is this is just flat. It's not any interest whatsoever. There's a little bit of tooth on this paper. It's got some bumps on it, and that lets it settle in differently. But this is a nice rich color, but this one, you can actually see it granulating and it's settling into some of those cracks and crevices. And so it actually creates more interest in the piece because you can see that. Now that doesn't really matter a huge amount for Bible journaling because you're inside of a Bible on the Bible paper that's very smooth, but you can put things on the surface, which is what I talk about in the page prep course, and that would help you to achieve this. So now let's talk a little bit better quality. So when we move up in quality, then we're looking at like the Winsor & Newton Professional or Daniel Smith or any number of other things that these companies have out. There's a ton of companies that have beautiful watercolors. Core, so many nice ones. Now these ones, I'll show you here. If you look in the light, you can actually see where the light is catching these. It's really evident that there's a shiny texture on this. And I'll show you another competitor here, which is these St. Petersburg ones. This is a Russian, and they are the White Knight version, these White Knight ones. I've got a little bit of a cover here, but I just want to show you. I mean, look at this. This is so nice and rich that it's actually sticking to me. It's juicy, and that is the sign of an even better quality one. So these have, you can see the light just so much reflecting off of these. And in some watercolors, they actually have honey inside of them. It depends on the company that you're working with. Graham use them. There's some really beautiful watercolors, and they all have this sort of richness of color, which is really good when you're trying to get that richness and you're really not sure what you're dealing with. You can actually get just look at it, the way in which it's on the camera. When you look at it in your eye here, like what are you actually looking at? Is it shiny? Is it flat? And that's going to tell you straight away whether it's a better quality or not. So let's go in here, one of these ultramarines, and we should find that with just a few swipes here, like before, we're going to get a really nice rich color. And it's beautiful. It's so rich in color. Now, I think that it would be easy to look at this and think, let me give a little bit more here. You can see that this looks very nice and smooth and dark and rich, and it's beautiful. This is very inconsistent, but it gives some color. This I just stuck the palette into, so that wasn't helpful. But basically, this is just super rich and beautiful. So I grabbed a little bit more because I realized I hadn't grabbed as much to be equal. But here, I'll just take my brush and kind of water this down, see if we can get that same effect. And the granulation that you can see depends on the particular watercolor that you have. That's not a sign of quality, but it can be if you're really, really far from quality. You won't get granulation whether you try or not. Now, this is a really fun, I mean, I've just watered this down, so that's not very helpful, but you get the idea. There is some really fun colors out there, and you can use something really cheap, but as you get better quality, you're going to find that you have more control over what's happening with the actual watercolor, because this dries straight in to the paper and it doesn't settle in nicely, whereas these have a nice grade and they have really beautiful color flowering. They're just more elegant. And so if you find that you're not super happy with the quality of your watercolor, then you probably, like when I say you feel like you did a good design and all of that, but your watercolor let you down and it just wasn't great, and there's something about it that falls flat, or it was applied poorly, don't blame yourself before you try better quality watercolor, because maybe you need to improve your skills, and that's fine because we all have to do that sometime, but maybe it's actually just the watercolor that you're using. So keep that in mind and make sure that you get good quality watercolors, because what will end up happening, I'll go for this French ultramarine. This has been dried in here for some weeks and is just beautiful. So I've got to swipe it a few times, and then this is a beautiful, rich watercolor that will undoubtedly be my favorite of all of them. And this is a Daniel Smith, but it would behave exactly like the Winsor & Newton Professional as well, but just slightly different. You can see how stunning and rich that is, and how smooth the transition is in the color and all of the detail. So I want to encourage you to try out new things. I'll also link in the bottom, underneath the video, I'll link my Bible journaling supplies guide. If you haven't ever checked it out, I've got a ton of stuff on there. I'm always improving it, and it's got loads of my recommendations. So if there's a certain product that you're interested in, that's where you're going to find it, because that's all the stuff that I use and love and recommend are on my supplies guide. So if you want to learn more from me, then check out the links, or if you want to find products, check out the links, all of that stuff. And will you tell me below, what kind of watercolors have you tried? And what kind of experience have you had? I really would love to hear, and I know others in the comments would love to hear as well. So will you tell me, what watercolors have you tried? Like what brands, what sets, anything like that? And what has been your experience with them? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Do you feel like it could be better? Are you not sure? Let us know. Pop into the comments, and I will see you soon. You are loved. Take care.